Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, July 9th, 2025 meeting of the Arlington County Planning Commission. I am Commissioner Tenley Peterson, Chair. Our first order of business will be to approve the meeting minutes from our June 2nd, 2025 Planning Commission meeting, followed by the following agenda items for discussion and vote. Site Plan 419, 1 Roslyn Site Plan with an ordinance to vacate, and Site Plan 187, Ballston 1 with an ordinance to vacate. Please review our online agendas for items that will be discussed later this week at the Thursday, July 10th recess meeting. Presenters and speakers joining the meeting through Microsoft Teams, please keep your phones and other electronic devices muted until you are called upon by the clerk. Please turn off the sound to any devices. Oh, there we go. Around you to minimize interference, and keep your cameras off until the clerk announces your name to speak. When called upon, you must unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon that is in the meeting command bar at the top of the screen. The moderator nor the clerk has the ability to unmute your mic. Once you have spoken, please mute your mics and turn off your cameras. If you are dialing in by phone to join the meeting, press *6 to unmute. Public speakers will be called upon by the clerk at an assigned time. Pre-registration with an email confirmation is required to speak at tonight's hearing. We are not able to accommodate additional speakers. All speakers will receive 2 minutes to comment as an individual. Only representatives of a county board appointed advisory group, committee, and/or commission will receive 3 minutes to comment. A timer will be displayed on the screen if speaking virtually, and speakers in person will follow the timer stationed at the podium. Audio of tonight's meeting is available via phone. If commissioners, presenters, or speakers lose internet connectivity, please reconnect by phone. However, if you are dialing in by phone and unable to see the screen, we will provide an audible 30-second warning to wrap up your comments. You will be muted when your time has expired. The meeting chat is active for presenters or commissioners who need technical assistance only. Please do not use the meeting chat for discussion, public comment, questions about agenda items, or requests for further information. All public comments must be shared verbally for the record during the assigned public testimony period. Tonight's meeting will be available for review through the YouTube platform. A link has been provided on the Planning Commission website 24 to 48 hours after the adjournment of the meeting. Although the meetings will no longer be a live broadcast, the meeting will be available for review with closed captioning on Comcast Xfinity channels 25 and 1085, Verizon Fios channels 39 and 40, 24 to 48 hours after the adjournment of the meeting. Lastly, this is a public forum. Tonight's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county website via a link to YouTube as stated. All information associated with tonight's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act requirements. So, Madam Clerk, should we go with the minutes first?
Yes.
Okay, colleagues, I'd like to ask for your unanimous consent to approve the minutes of our June 2nd, 2025 Planning Commission meeting. Okay, so moved. Okay, Madam Clerk, can you call our next agenda item?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our next item, starting with number 6, is RECN 25-00001, the rezoning SPLA 24-00041, phase development site plan amendment, and SPLA 24-00040, site plan amendment for the 1 Roslyn site plan number 419. We have Adam Watson, our project manager, to present this item this evening.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Watson with the Planning Division. So I will be covering our 1 Roslyn development program here this evening, which includes the rezoning, the PDSP amendment, and the site plan amendment, as well as the associated ordinance of vacation. This site is located at 1901 and 1911 Fort Myer Drive in Roslyn. This 2 existing office buildings on the site today, the north building and the south building, that were built in the 1960s and would be demolished with this redevelopment program. In terms of the general land use plan, this site is designated as high office apartment hotel on the GLUB map, and it's within the Roslyn Coordinated Redevelopment District. There is a rezoning associated with this site. Currently, the site, the existing zoning is S3A and CO Roslyn Mixed Use District. There's a very small, about 2,400 square foot portion of S3A at the very northern portion of the site that would be rezoned to CO Roslyn so that the entire site would be consistently CO Roslyn. CO Roslyn does allow the county board to approve densities up to 10 FAR, and this proposed rezoning is consistent with the site's GLUP designation. The applicant will go into much greater detail in their presentation, but just to summarize the redevelopment proposal here, the first action would be to discontinue the previous PDSP as it's no longer needed because the site would develop in a single phase, and then have a new site plan amendment to construct 3 residential towers above a mixed-use podium at a total density of 9.92 FAR. The rendering on the bottom right-hand side of the screen shows you those 3 towers, the northeast tower in the foreground at 253 feet or 23 stories. The northwest tower would be 285 feet, 27 stories, and then the south tower on 20th Street would be a maximum height of 300 feet at 29 stories. In terms of parking, the proposed residential parking ratio is 0.65 spaces per dwelling unit. We are considering working with the applicant to reduce that further to 0.5 spaces per dwelling unit. In terms of retail parking, there would be 6 spaces allocated. In addition to that, 21 visitor parking spaces as part of the overall residential parking ratio. There's a number of additional parking spaces that we are excluding from the count that will exist in the garage, including about 101 tandem spaces and additional compact spaces above the 15% maximum compact threshold. In terms of sustainability, this project is going to achieve LEED Gold version 4 certification, and it's not participating in the green building incentive policy for any additional density. However, the applicant is committing to Energy Star appliances and fixtures, WaterSense plumbing fixtures, and energy cost savings of at least 20%, as well as EV charging stations at a minimum of 2% installed. In addition, there are zoning modifications requested for additional density, reduced parking requirements, and density exclusions for below-grade mechanical and storage space and vertical air shafts. As I mentioned at the top, there are also a number of proposed vacations to make this redevelopment possible. And Mr. Haluski from the Real Estate Bureau is here with me this evening if there's any questions about that. But there's quite a significant vacation of street right-of-way in order to expand out the street wall of this building consistent with the sector plan. So jumping into our analysis and discussion, the primary policy document guiding development of this site is the Roslyn Sector Plan that was adopted in 2015. We also have the off-street parking guidelines that were approved in 2017, and I would just note that this parking guidelines document allows a residential building to have a parking ratio as low as 0.2 spaces per dwelling unit for a market rate building. This is why we're supportive of allowing a modification to down to 0.5 spaces per dwelling unit. In addition to that, we looked at the Core of Roslyn Transportation Study and then also our Gateway Park Master Plan, which is an ongoing capital project, but the master plan was just adopted by the county board back in December of 24. Overall, this is an excellent project. This slide is not exhaustive, but an overall summary of everything that this project complies with in terms of the Roslyn Sector Plan. And so our density is just slightly below the maximum allowed in terms of land use. The sector plan recommends significantly increasing the amount of housing within Roslyn, which this will do, of course, adding 850 new dwelling units. A new additional retail to serve the neighborhood. There'd be a retail space along Langston Boulevard and then 2 smaller spaces along the 20th Street frontage. The building heights are at or below the maximums allowed by the sector plan. Sector plan recommends at least LEED Silver for sustainability, and again, the applicant is achieving LEED Gold with some additional commitments being made as well. In terms of our tower dimensions and separations, those recommendations are all being met here. And then lastly, new streetscapes, which is a very important component of this project, are all meeting or exceeding the overall streetscape section width of 15 to 19 feet as recommended in the sector plan. In terms of community benefits, the applicant is proposing to make a $7.5 million cash contribution towards affordable housing in Arlington. that fulfills our sector plan recommendation to ensure that up to 30% of the total value of the community benefits package is directed towards affordable housing. And for those who might be asking, why cash over on-site, the sector plan in this instance specifically recommends a cash contribution be prioritized to the extent feasible. And so that's what we are doing here. Additionally, $2 million towards offsite public space improvements such as Gateway Park, $3 million towards offsite transportation improvements. Again, these are both things that are recommended by the sector plan, and this proposal is consistent with both the zoning ordinance and the sector plan guidance for community benefits on this site. There are a number of other significant site plan improvements that are not being done for any additional density. That includes closing of all these existing loop and service roads that circumnavigate the site today to make it much more pedestrian friendly and claim back some of the vehicular travel lanes for pedestrian and cycling use. Of the skywalk removal, which is consistent with the master transportation plan and the Roslyn sector plan. And I just note if there are questions about that, we have a lot of additional information that we can share that we shared with the county board last month. Additionally, streetscape improvements and construction of those streetscapes, as today there are no trees at the back of curb, and buffered bike lanes as well on 20th Street and along Langston Boulevard. Additionally, a base affordable housing contribution, public art contribution, our TDM measures, in-building wireless for our first responders, and a utility fund contribution. We had a robust community engagement process that kicked off back in February with an online engagement, followed by 2 SPRC meetings, one in March and one in May. And so we're here tonight before you at the Planning Commission. Last Monday, this project did go to Transportation Commission, where the main motion, all motions passed unanimously, and the main motion passed 11-0. And this project will also go to the Housing Commission tomorrow evening before going to the County Board on the 19th. Overall, again, this is a really good project that fulfills the last of a 3-block segment down in Roslyn per the sector plan's guidance, and makes a number of really critical contributions and advances several key county goals. So not going to read verbatim off the slide, but again, in terms of affordable housing, it combined $11.2 million between the base and the bonus. New housing in terms of 845 new dwelling units, new retail to serve the neighborhood at almost, it's actually closer to 15,000 square feet. All these pedestrian realm and streetscape improvements that the applicant will be showing in their presentation. Again, LEED Gold certification and 20% energy optimization. World-class architecture and building design that's called for in the sector plans. This is a real gateway site as you hence the name Roslyn Gateway, as you cross the bridge from DC into Arlington. And then lastly, again, those monetary contributions towards nearby offsite public spaces and transportation improvements. And so with that, staff recommends the Planning Commission adopt the attached rezoning ordinance, discontinue the previous Roslyn Gateway phase development site plan, and then adopt the new site plan amendment ordinance for this project. Lastly, also please find that the ordinance to vacate is substantially in accord with the comprehensive plan of Arlington County, Virginia. And that concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The applicant has 10 minutes.
Great, thank you.
Sorry. Real quick, I was going to share. I've gotten kicked off multiple times. Adam, I did email it to you, and I have someone online that can also share.
I'd be happy to run it if that's quickest.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Watson. Good evening. My name is Kedrick Whitmore. I'm a land use and zoning attorney with Venable LLP, and we're excited to bring you the proposal for One Roslyn. Mr. Watson did a great job presenting, so I will endeavor not to be redundant with what he said. On the next slide, you can see a little information about the background and our team. As mentioned, we've assembled a world-class team with experience throughout Arlington and beyond. On the next slide is some information about the project location, but I think Mr. Watson covered that adequately, so I will move past that. Moving to the next slide here, you can see that the existing site is currently improved with 2 aging obsolete office buildings, and the existing site is around 72,000 square feet, but it's surrounded by county-owned loop roads, service drives that are a vestige of the 1960s auto-oriented development that was in place when the buildings were built. So in order to comply with the recommendations of the Roslyn Sector Plan and to create the type of urban environment that Roslyn really needs, the street wall and any new condition is going to need to be pushed out to meet the public right-of-way. And that's going to necessitate a large vacation of county interest in these areas at cost, and it will increase the size of the site area dramatically. Removal of these service drives and loop roads are going to be an important component of enhancing the urban design here, ensuring safety for pedestrians and vehicles alike by creating a regularized street and sidewalk network and really creating the kind of place that's called for in the sector plan. And on the next slide, if this site looks familiar to you, that's because it was approved way back when in 2012 by a previous owner for an office-heavy scheme. For reasons that you can imagine, that was not really financeable or buildable going forward. So the existing property has stayed as is since that time. On the next slide here, we are going to be replacing that entitlement from 2012 with a new residential scheme. We are proposing to build 3 towers on a shared podium with 845 residential units and about 14,000 square feet of ground level retail. Those towers are located on the northwest, northeast, and south sides of the property. The next slide shows you the ground level. You'll see that we've got pedestrian entrances and lobbies in corresponding locations on Fort Myer North and 19th Street. We have tried to limit the number of curb cuts at the site. We're serving these 3 buildings with only 3 curb cuts. Parking entries on the west side off of Fort Myer with a consolidated entrance ganged up with some of the entrances on the nearby Holiday Inn site. And the loading is on the east side on Moore Street. There are, you'll note, 2 entrances necessary because of the grade change in that area, but we have again tried to gang the loading up with corresponding with that of the RCA building farther to the east. This loading will be head in, head out. So with that, I will turn it over to Alan Beal at Studios to talk a little bit more about the design. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alan Beal with Studios Architecture, leading the site design for the applicant. On this slide, it shows the existing aerial photograph and street photos highlighting the current auto-oriented 60s era planning with service roads that loop around the site, resulting in discontinuous sidewalks and additional areas where pedestrians have to navigate vehicular traffic, along with buildings that are deeply set back from the roads with little space for engagement and extremely limited vegetation and street trees. While this site is located a block from Metro, it does not reflect current planning principles for transit-oriented design. Next slide. Our proposed design shown here will make a much safer and engaging experience for pedestrians by adding street front retail as shown in purple, with generous continuous sidewalks and crosswalk improvements as highlighted in blue. On-street parking will also be provided on Fort Myer, along with pickup drop-off on 19th Fort Myer and Northmore, adjacent to each building lobby, which are sort of yellow in that picture. Finally, as highlighted in green, new ground level bike rooms and protected bike lanes on Langston and 19th Street, along with the planned Fort Myer cycle track, will further advance the multimodal objectives of the sector plan. Next slide. So this series of slides looks at the existing conditions compared with the proposed. As shown by the top 2 images, the current frontage along Langston is deeply set back from the main road and bisected by the service loop, resulting in a narrow pedestrian walkway removed from the natural path of travel. The new design introduces a generous and continuous walkway along Langston and will enhance the park experience across the street by introducing a continuous tree canopy, generous public space, and active retail frontage, contributing to a vibrant streetscape. Next slide. On Fort Myer, the top image shows the existing conditions again with a service road and 2 lanes of parking, while the bottom image shows the proposed condition with a much wider continuous sidewalk, street trees, and a landscape strip while providing opportunities for on-street parking and pickup drop-off. The next slide on 19th Street with the top image shows existing narrow sidewalks and wide service roads and islands, while the bottom image shows the proposed design with generous sidewalks, extensive landscaping, and retail frontage flanking both sides of the building lobby. So finally, on the next slide on Northmore, the existing images on the top show sidewalks with no vegetation compared to the proposed and narrow sidewalks compared to the proposed on the bottom showing wider sidewalk and street trees. Next slide. And the next slide. So the architectural concept looks to nature for its inspiration, particularly the role hydrology plays in creating natural forms. Towers are carved and sculpted to create a variety of heights and expressions consistent with the sector plan goals. Studios and HCA felt this biophilic approach was particularly important given the project's adjacency to Gateway Park. In addition to the overall context of Roslyn, we are carefully considered the adjacent development that are under construction, especially as it relates to our podium design. The design breaks down the current superblock by carving away at the key corners to allow each tower's architecture to come to the ground, highlighting arrival points and adding variety to the streetscape per the sector plan principles. Next slide. So this view from Georgetown illustrates the prominence of the site as an iconic gateway arrival from the Key Bridge and how these towers will complete this edge of the Roslyn skyline. Penzance very intentionally brought on a second architect for the Northwest Tower to ensure we have a variety in the design. It's been an excellent collaboration working with Hickok Cole Architects in developing a design where each tower has its own distinct geometry, but is also complementary to one another. Next slide. So as we walk around the site, this view is taken from the northeast corner of Langston and Northmore, highlighting the strong verticality of the Northeast Tower on the left and the stepping of the Northwest Tower on the right. As they face Gateway Park, retail and residential units front the park, creating a vibrant pedestrian-scaled experience. So rotating, next slide, around the site to the corner of Northmore and 19th Street, this view depicts the South Tower as you arrive from the Roslyn Metro Station. Ground level retail flanks both corners on the left and the right, further activating the streetscape. Next slide. And at the corner of 19th Street and Fort Myer Drive, the wrapping form of the South Tower is seen again on the right, along with the stepping form of the Northwest Tower by HCA on the right. The ground level retail lobbies and varied architectural language creates a pedestrian scaled podium consistent with the goals of the sector plan. And as we go to the last view, pivoting back to the northwest corner of the Fort Myer and Langston Boulevard, I'll turn it over to Guy with HCA to talk in more detail about the Northwest Tower. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Guy Almeida. I'm an associate principal and design director at Hickok Cole. I've been leading the design of the Northwest Tower, which is intended to complement but remain distinct from the Northeast and South Towers. The Northwest Tower draws inspiration from the dynamic, eroded landscape of the Potomac Valley Gorge, located just northwest of our site, and is composed of 3 distinct volumes stitched together and defined by rows of balconies and outdoor spaces. These elements create generous opportunities for residents to engage with the park and enjoy views across the river. The volume facing the park features a strong vertical expression that runs down to grade, establishing a clear hierarchy in the retail frontage and bringing variety to the street wall created by the podium. The massing of the tower gradually steps back from the Northeast Tower. This erosion of form opens the courtyard space between the two northern towers and results in a tapered silhouette on the Roslyn skyline. The tower's sleek aesthetic provides a subtle contrast to the masonry base. At street level, framed openings with distinct materiality that enhance the streetscape and promote a more engaging and pedestrian-friendly environment. Active uses such as a generous residential lobby fronting Fort Myer Drive and retail along Langston Boulevard contribute to a lively and inviting public realm that engages Gateway Park at the northern edge of our site. Next slide. And with that, I'll turn it over back to Ked.
Great, thank you, Guy. I think that Mr. Watson did a great job of walking through the community benefits associated with this property. So I'll, again, try not to be redundant. As he mentioned, we are not participating in the Green Building Incentive Policy Program. We are not receiving bonus density as a result of green building. However, we are still undertaking a number of sustainability elements that we're very proud of at this project. As both parties mentioned, there are significant site improvements here that are going to really achieve a lot of the goals of the Roslyn Sector Plan. We are participating in the Transportation Management Plan and Public Art, as you would expect in any site plan project. We are making a significant contribution to both Gateway Park and off-site transportation improvements to the tune of about $5 million. And as noted, our affordable housing contribution, inclusive of both the base and the bonus, is just over $11 million. So with that, I will close the presentation and we will be available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers?
Yes, for this item, we have Liliana Diaz. She's representing the C2E2 Commission.
Thank you.
And I see Ms. McIntyre made it in as well, so she'll speak on the next item.
Okay. And if you want to lower the podium, you can. There should be a button. Oh, there you go. You can do that too.
Can you hear me?
Okay, good.
Thank you. I have prepared some remarks. Good evening. I'm Liliana Diaz, Commissioner with Arlington's Climate Change, Energy and Environment Commission. I'm here to present our sustainability assessment on the One Roslyn project, and I must be direct. Our recommendation is that the Planning Commission reject this project as currently designed. We conducted a comprehensive review using our SBRC checklist, evaluating 6 critical areas: green building certification and carbon reduction, energy efficiency, electrification, electric vehicle infrastructure, renewable energy, and environmental sustainability. Each component is scored against both baseline requirements and the standard needed to meet Arlington's community energy plan goals. Our assessment score is 56%, failing to meet Arlington's carbon neutrality and sustainability goals. This project represents an outdated development approach when we desperately in the county need forward-thinking design. Where this project fails: first, electrification. While claiming electrical constraints, this project proposes gas use that will lock in fossil fuels dependency for decades. They are installing gas cooking ranges in 65 units, exposing residents, particularly children, to nitrogen dioxide that is scientifically proven to inhibit child development. They are keeping gas boilers for HVAC backup without adequately exploring full electrification alternatives. Second, renewable energy. Zero commitment, none. They cite limited roof space but show no interest in Arlington's Green Power Community Challenge of other off-site options. This is a massive missed opportunity. Third, they're doing the bare minimum everywhere else. They're pursuing LEED Gold version 4, a standard from over a decade ago when version 5 was released this year. They propose only 4% EV charging when electric vehicles already account for over 10% of new vehicle sales in Virginia. Most concerning, because they are not participating in the Green Building Incentive Program, they won't meet requirements for bird-friendly glass or light pollution reduction. Given the site's location next to the Gateway Park and proximity to migratory routes along the Potomac River, this represents a direct threat to birds, insects, and other urban wildlife. What this project should be. This is a very, very large project that will stand for 50 years. We need buildings designed for the future, fully electrified, renewably powered future. This project should demonstrate comprehensive electrification, current LEED standards, and meaningful renewable energy integration and infrastructure that anticipates Arlington's climate goals, not resist them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Diaz. And thank you for your letter as well. Okay, and do we have any additional commissions speaking to us tonight? Okay, do we have a Transportation Commission report?
Yes, this was before the Transportation Commission at its meeting last Thursday night. Overall, to get to the, not to bury the lead, but as Adam mentioned, excuse me, the Transportation Commission voted unanimously on all of the items before it. Our discussion actually spent almost all of our time on the Sky Bridge. There's clearly a lot of interest by the surrounding neighborhoods. North Roslyn supports its removal, but North Highlands had a number of people that were very much opposed to it, as does that civic association. And it's mainly because of that one particular intersection right by the project. We spent a lot of time exploring that, talking with staff, talking with the communities, and then among ourselves. At the end, our conclusion pretty much was that those sky bridges are very rarely used. If 1 in 100 people crossing that intersection actually use that bridge to do that, I'm not exaggerating. There's probably a lot. We had, as a member at SPRC, there was one person there who commented who actually had done a count. It was informal. It was not and it wasn't with the applicant or the staff, but the numbers were pretty damning. We also explored whether the Sky Bridge would actually improve or do anything to lessen the danger of the intersection. Basically, our conclusion was that it does not. It's You're still going to have most of the people crossing that street at grade. All the changes, we're still going to have to improve that intersection for those large numbers of people that are crossing at grade. So the Sky Bridge, for what is probably at least 7 figures to rebuild it to make it ADA compliant, it simply doesn't pencil out, and it doesn't improve the safety of that intersection, or it doesn't really contribute to the safety of that intersection. After having explored, by the way, we also did get a commitment from staff that they would explore all possibilities, design possibilities for improving that intersection as time goes on. It isn't identified as one of the problem intersections in Vision Zero. But the staff we were considering doing a add-on motion, but did not do so because staff told us they're fully open to any and all solution to make that intersection safer, in addition to what they've already done over the past number of months. Based on all those assurances, based on our own analysis, we declined to support a Sky Bridge and voted, as we did, to support the staff recommendation that this project go forward and the Sky Bridge being torn down to be part of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Lantelmi. And a committee chair report from Commissioner Weir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I circulated a written report, but to go over a couple of highlights, for the record, again, this was discussed by the SPRC both in an online engagement as well as at meetings on March 27 and May 1. There was broad consensus among the SPRC, among the members of the SPRC table, that this was a good project. There are places where people would have liked to have seen improvement, like participation in the Green Building Incentive Program, or current use of use of a more current LEED Gold standard. It's noteworthy that the relevant LEED Gold standard is the one that is in place at the time of application, and I believe that while we're under V5 now, V4 would have been controlling at the relevant tolling time, is my understanding. There was a lot of discussion and support about community benefits. One of the staff report details some of the very good changes that were made in the architecture over the course of the SPRC, including improving the ways that, including improving how the new Gateway Park will meet the building across Langston Boulevard. I identify some areas for further discussion, but I want to say one thing about the skywalk removal. In a way, the pedestrian bridge, in a very important way, the removal of the pedestrian bridge isn't actually even before the commission. It is proposed to be removed as part of this project, but this is an amendment to an existing site plan. That already that has just been extended by the board, that already calls for removal of the Sky Bridge, pursuant to a sector plan that calls for the removal of the Sky Bridge, as well as a master transportation plan that calls for removal of the Sky Bridge, and is connected to adopted plans that have been built out throughout the area that are premised upon removals of the Sky Bridge. So, any weighing in by this commission on the removal of the Sky Bridge as it pertains to this request to amend a site plan would be not just weighing in on the site plan amendment, it would be weighing in on just a whole boatload of existing adopted policy and plans. That's not on the agenda. I'll leave it at that. As far as areas for further discussion by the commission, I think that it is appropriate to discuss some pedestrian safety measures at grade, particularly at that intersection. Commissioner Lantelmi hints at a number of innovations that I'm sure that the Transportation Commission discussed. One thing that was floated at an SPRC was evaluating the feasibility of a Barnes dance for anyone who has in the last few years negotiated the intersection at H Street and 7th Street downtown Gallery Place intersection. I believe that's the intersection where the district has implemented one, and basically, the difference is that instead of these people go, then these people go. Vehicles go, then vehicles don't, and everyone else goes every direction that they want to. It's a great way to move a lot of people and no cars for a period of time. Confirmation of transportation logistics regarding deliveries and PUDO operations. A third topic, detailed consideration and confirmation of sustainability commitments and potential enhancements beyond LEED Gold certification. And a fourth would be clarification of specific landscaping details, particularly related to continuity with Gateway Park and proposed biophilic features. These are suggestions. As always, I leave it to the commission to decide whether or not to discuss any of these four, or whether to discuss ones beyond that. And as far as recommended motions, I intend to move the county manager recommended motions without amendment. But I have to go get some water before I say anything else. So.
Okay, well, we'll get started on our discussion. So I'll go through the typical agenda items and let me know if you want to ask clarifying questions or make comments on any of them, and then we'll go back and through them. So does anybody want to ask questions or make comments about site location, land use, and site design? Okay, building form and architecture. Okay, transportation.
I just want to know, we're not concerned about the parking ratios here at transportation. Though if staff can convince them to drop it, that's fine with us, fine with me. I also note that this is a huge improvement over what's there now, in that getting rid of those loop roads and widening the sidewalks. It goes a long way to converting Roslyn from being automotive priority to being pedestrian priority. This is like one of the missing links in the whole neighborhood there. So this is a tremendous step forward in the design for transportation purposes. And as Commissioner Weir mentioned, it is totally consistent with the master transportation plan and with the Roslyn plan and with the overall comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to go through the rest of the agenda. We'll confirm the items and then we can talk more about each one. So we'll talk about transportation, sustainability. Do you want to talk about that? Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, I'll go. I just want to make sure I'm identifying the items. Public spaces. Commissioner Weir said we should talk about that. Community benefits. I'd like to talk about that. And then process phasing or construction. Does anybody have questions or comments? Okay. So let's go back to transportation then. So thank you, Commissioner Lantelmi. I am interested in learning more about the ground level improvements that'll be done since we're moving the Sky Bridge. And I did a tour with the Pedestrian Advisory Committee a few weeks ago. We looked at one particular intersection, which already has made some improvements with the changing of the signaling. We discussed whether or not there would be a possibility to have like a no right turn on red at that intersection, as has been done in a lot of other busy intersections across the county. So I just love to hear about that and other things you're considering to just make sure this really does become the safest pedestrian experience and cyclist experience, since we're going to be adding, 700 plus new neighbors and shoppers, which is wonderful.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, safety is very important here. And I have Rob Gibson from DES as well as Dan Neighbors from DES on the phone, and I'm going to have them respond to your question. And then I will also do my best to share any associated slides that we might have on those topics. And I'll just ask Mr. Gibson to direct me to the correct slide number. So I'll turn it over to them.
Thanks, Adam. This is Robert Gibson from Arlington County DES Development Services. Chairman, I just wanted to ask, do you want us to do a quick summary of what has changed at Langston Boulevard and 19th to help sort of the record and lay the groundwork for answering your question?
I don't think I need to know what previous changes. I'm just wondering, like, continuous improvement, what else can be done? I know that there's a little bit of conflict because some of these are state roads, and so we don't necessarily have control of some of the changes. So, you know, what are we continuing to do that we have control over, and what advocacy are we doing at the state level to improve safety conditions in this around this block?
Thank you. Then I'll hand this off to Dan Neighbors, to Eno, Bureau Chief.
Good evening, everyone. Planning Commission. Madam Chair, I'll try to answer your question. So, as you know from the walk that we did a few weeks ago with the Pedestrian Advisory Committee, we have done a few things to help separate the movements of vehicles and pedestrians, so that vehicles, when they move, pedestrians do not move, and then when pedestrians move, vehicles don't. So in essence, we've protected 3 of those 4 legs by separating those movements. And since we've made those changes, we've looked and we've seen that vehicles are complying, which is good. That said, I know that something that we have committed to and are starting, we are looking at a no right turn on red for that eastbound movement. So that is in the works right now, and that is something that we should know in the next month or so. We are also kicking off a capital project that will improve the remaining 3 corners. So the site to the west of Fort Myer, where the cycle track is, the new cycle track, has improved that corner. That used to be a slip lane, and that's a tighter radius. So the capital project will improve the remaining 3 radii, you know, kind of tightening those up so that when vehicles do turn, they are turning slower. It'll also narrow the lanes on that stretch of Fort Myer between eastbound and westbound Langston, and we'll continue that cycle track basically from the south side of eastbound Langston to the north side of Langston. To the north side of eastbound Langston, between eastbound and westbound Langston, that connects to the Custis Trail. And when that happens, those lanes will be narrowed in that section of Fort Myer as well. So those are the basic things that we have planned right now. As what we do with our Vision Zero initiative, we're always monitoring and evaluating and seeing if changes that we're doing are effective in terms of meeting our kind of surrogate measures. Of course, our ultimate measure is no crashes, right? And since we made the change in separating the movements at that intersection in October, there has not been a crash. There's not been a crash at that intersection since August of last year, fortunately. So as part of that Vision Zero initiative, we do monitor locations that have been problematic in the past, and we're always looking for ways that we can enhance or improve. But those things that I mentioned, the no right on red we're looking at, and the capital project are the most immediate things that are going to be occurring at that intersection.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any follow-up questions or comments? Commissioner Weir?
My understanding, this is like an observation that I want to just put and then have staff comment on, and like, what is staff's thinking? Is this? Let me start over. My understanding is that in many circumstances, pedestrians are actually more likely to be struck by a vehicle turning left than turning right on red, and that there are a number of contributing factors to this. One is the relative distance of a pedestrian who is crossing the street catty corner to you, combined with increasing size of A-pillars in vehicles, combined with the way that non-commercial drivers make turns. A driver is usually at a higher rate of speed by the time that they are finishing a left turn than when they are finishing a right turn. To staff, I want to ask, this is a datum that I learned about maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Is this still a finding that is robust? And if it is robust, then how is it factoring into staff's thinking about the design at this intersection?
I'll go ahead and answer that as well. So, yes, Commissioner, that is correct, that has been some trend that we have seen in the past, where the left turning crashes have, had a higher severity. I would have to go back and see if that is still trending, but because we know that is a kind of general issue that we're trying to address, that's why those left turns, the southbound left turns on Fort Myer, are separated from that kind of conflicting pedestrian movement. So when the pedestrians have a walk, those left turns have a red arrow. They cannot go. And since we implemented that, we've observed vehicles are obeying that, and that's good. So that is when I say that movement is separated, meaning pedestrians can move on that eastern leg and the left turns cannot go. So, in general, that is something that we look at in terms of providing protected left turns in other locations, but very specific to this location, they are separated. And I see one of my colleagues is pulling up on the screen, Mr. Watson is pulling up a image that shows what we mean by protected left turns. So if you look at the image on the left side, you see that the two vehicle left lanes have a red indication, a red arrow, meaning they cannot move, and the pedestrians have a walk. And then conversely, the pedestrians, they have a, raised red hand when the vehicles have the left turn green. So when I say they're separated, they are both signal controlled, and they do not go concurrently. The problems that we had in the past is that they were going concurrently at the same time, and so there was that conflict. Does that answer your question?
Yes. The real thing that I was trying to just get a sense of staff's thinking as to the design in the light of that possible finding. If in light of the possibility that finding is going to be a continued trend, and so you've shared that with me, and that gives me a lot of confidence overall in how staff is approaching the problems at this intersection. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, Commissioner Steinberger. And then we're going to move on to sustainability and biophilia.
So is there a distinction that was intentionally being made in the last response with regards to severity of pedestrian car impacts on a left-hand turn versus the frequency of a left-hand turn versus a right-hand turn? I just picked up on how you answered the question. I was trying to figure out if that's a meaningful distinction.
It is something that we look at, and again, our Vision Zero program is focused on eliminating the critical crashes that what we refer to as critical crashes, a severe injury, a fatality. So those are things that we are, having primary focus on. We don't want a critical crash to happen, period. We want to be able to solve those as quickly as possible. Obviously, locations that do have multiple crashes show a trend, and we're addressing those multiple crash trends in a different manner as well. Does that answer your question?
Not exactly. I think I was trying to ask if left-hand turns are more severe generally than right-hand turns, but right-hand impacts are more frequent.
I would have to look to see what the current trends are, but we have seen that trend in the past, and it's very site specific, I will say. But I will have to get back to you in terms of what the current trends are in terms of right turn versus left turn crashes.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Thank you. I would be interested in sort of the current data on that. But that's very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, and that might be a note just for staff generally. If we ever have a month where we don't have 3 hearings happening, maybe we can have a transportation update. I think when we were looking at our master transportation plan last month, we were interested in some of the kind of numbers and stats, happening in our county. Okay, so I'd like to move on to sustainability and biophilia. Clarifying questions or comments. Commissioner Lantelmi.
Yeah, some questions. I noticed that you're planning to put gas ranges or gas cooktops in the condo building. I'm wondering, is that everybody gets it, or do the potential purchasers, if they purchase during construction, could choose between electric, induction, and gas? Or is it everybody gets the same thing? Because it would strike me that, I understand why you're doing it, but it would seem to me that by giving people an option on that would help your numbers on gas, using less gas. I am sorry that you're not fully electric, but I know that you have the ability to do that under our zoning ordinance and our plans. But it seems to me there should be at least give people the option to not do it if they can make that choice. So that's my question.
Sure. So the way that the design will run is that there will be all gas. There won't be an option to kind of mix and match because of the systems that have to be put in place to provide it for the entirety of the building. That said, we're very proud that we're able to provide a large proportion of this site as electric. We also face some challenges anytime we look at full electrification with sizes of vaults and Dominion Energy and load demand, that sort of thing.
I mean, I understand you have to have every unit have a pipe going in, but could a condo owner cap his or her gas main and just put in electric?
Yes, that flexibility will be built in. The electric panels for individual condo units will have enough redundant capacity so that they could be retrofitted at a later date to do some type of alternative cooktop unit.
Great. I just want to make sure there is still that option. You're not locked into gas forever in this building.
I do have a follow-up question. So most of the projects that we have seen coming to us are fully electric, and that seems to work for a lot of these projects. And it sounds like you're saying, no, for condos, the market isn't going to support that. And so I'm just interested, why are condos different? Why are all of these apartment buildings fine with having, people cooking with electric kitchens, but condo owners somehow won't accept that?
Thank you for the question. I'm sure, as you're aware, there's a meaningful deficit in for sale housing in Arlington County across all different product types. In the condominium standfront, there has been just a tremendous lack of new supply coming online. And as such, as we looked at this opportunity to do that and kind of how we approached the project, we were faced with coming up with a mix of uses that would allow the project to come forward all at once. And doing all apartments would have been too much density in the form of the apartment use. So we looked to diversify by adding the condos. In doing so, we have a lot of experience from our condo sales up the street, where we delivered the Highlands project, which was a public-private partnership with Arlington County, and we sold 104 new condos there. And so from the experiences at that condo unit, and then we also did a focus group study to reach out to prospective purchasers to inquire what type of appliances, what type of bathroom fixtures, what type of finishes. Do they want a pantry? Do they want a walk-in closet? It was overwhelmingly this demographic does require the gas cooking. And so it's trying to put forward a product that meets the target demographic needs, but building in the flexibility and redundancy so at a later date, as trends evolve, and the next round of purchasers that would want to pursue electric or possibly induction, which we would certainly encourage, that flexibility is built into retrofit, but to make sure we're coming forward with a market product that allows the entire project to be built all at once, because the phasing it would just make it financially infeasible.
Thank you. I mean, I'm really happy to see condos. I think it's great to have the opportunity to purchase a unit. So did you have a question?
I may have missed it, but is there bird-friendly glass?
There is not. That is listed as an extra in the green building incentive policy, and we're not participating in that. So bird-friendly glass is not part of our proposal.
I'd like to know more about why. I mean, I guess you don't need the extra density, so you're not doing green building incentive policy, but I don't know. I feel like nowadays it's just so important for everything that we're seeing from a climate perspective with all the natural disasters we're seeing. I know you don't have to do it, but it would be nice to do the right thing. I know staff, we are looking at improving our green building incentive program to make it more attractive. As a commission, we heard some suggestions on how to do that last fall. Haven't seen kind of progress on that front. So I just love a quick update on where we are on making it more attractive so that maybe our applicants will do the right thing more often.
For the record, Matt Pfeiffer with the Planning Division. I think we are just restarting the GBIP process. I don't think we're quite at the point where staff would be ready to come and brief the commission, but that's something that we can definitely put back to the green building staff and see at what point they might be available to come to the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Commissioner Steinberger, and then Commissioner Lantelmi.
So I appreciate that, if you're not needing the additional density, you're not, going all in on the green buildings and incentives and all the pieces of that. I would say that what we do typically see is that bird-friendly glass. It's kind of in the title, friendly glass. Bird-unfriendly glass doesn't really have the same marketing ring. That it's kind of a gimme that people would kind of just rather have a building that would be not unfriendly to birds. Some of this is just marketing pitch, bird-friendly glass. They cornered the market on it sounds better than like buildings that kill birds. I would urge you to reconsider that. It's really something that we see as kind of standard, and dead birds don't really sell buildings. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd like to pile on with that because everything else aside, having dead birds on your amenity deck, which is it's a nice amenity deck, and it's really pretty big. But in the spring and the fall, having it littered with dead birds is not going to be the most attractive thing to your tenants and to the condo owners. So there is a practical reason for your tenants and your owners that you'll want to have those, certainly at least along your amenity deck. Thank you.
If I may just add, staff is happy to have a lower parking ratio. You may want the higher number of parking spots, but if you can save money by not building all those extra parking spots, maybe that money could be reallocated to bird-friendly glass and nicer dark skies lighting. I think we would all appreciate that. Commissioner Weir.
For the applicant or staff, whomever, I don't know who this is properly put to, but remind me, when we're talking about bird-friendly glass, we're talking about bird-friendly glass within a specific height band, right? What's the band?
It's approximately 8 to 32 feet, I
Okay.
would say.
And the retail, so 8 to 32, how many floors of residential units are going to be below 32?
Yeah, the vast majority of that is garage, is above grade garage.
Is okay.
So I don't know that we've got the same concern in that band.
I thank you. That I'm not really trying to build a case with that. I was just curious about what it is that we're talking about when we talk about requiring bird-friendly glass. For my colleagues, I'm quite comfortable with the idea of revisiting in policy what is optional, what is incentive, and what is standard requirements. But I am uncomfortable with a line of argument that gets to I am uncomfortable, for example, with the recommendation from C2E2 that the project be rejected because in part it does not participate in a voluntary program. If we are going to have requirements, let's have requirements. If they are going to be incentives or voluntary, then they are incentive and voluntary. And I'll leave that particular line of comment there.
Thank you, Commissioner Steinberger.
Just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that C2E2, request to reject. I appreciate their concerns, but I'm not, in line with that, request, demand, what have you, in terms of, it is a voluntary process. I was speaking purely to the bird-friendly glass aspect, and what I wanted to highlight for the Commissioner Weir raised is that we're not talking about doing the whole building in bird-friendly glass. We're talking about, the key band that staff correctly identified and I incorrectly identified. So that is sort of what I'm, the focus of the comment that I was making. Thank you.
Commissioner Bagley.
Yeah, just as a planning commissioner who sat through a lot of things in the Roslyn area, repeated bird experts saying that this is a major migratory flight pattern. I'm just surprised because I think pretty much everything that comes in through there, we have some sort of bird-friendly glass in. So go ahead. It's just a little disappointing, I guess.
Sure, and I wanted to address a couple of the questions that came up, and I think Chair Peterson's first one is the most important one, and that's kind of how do you come to some of these decisions? How do you come to these proposals? And I think when we look at the community benefits, we look at it, obviously each one individually is important, but we do look at them as a whole and as a package, and we look at what the sector plan recommends and then where staff is on a lot of things. And so where we ended up here, right, was that a significant amount of density was generated by the need to push those buildings out that I mentioned in my presentation. We're essentially required by the sector plan to spend 8 figures purchasing those roads and creating a building face that moves out to those roads. And by doing so, it generated a significant amount of density that then gets used for base density that then does not have to be earned through bonus density. So that was one of the elements that was essentially a fixed position. There was no way to change that, right? That was an inherent part of this. The other was affordable housing, and the Roslyn sector plan does have a greater recommendation toward affordable housing than some of the other sector plans. It calls for at least 30% of community benefits to be directed toward affordable housing. So with those two elements in place, that was a pretty significant portions of the community benefits package and portions of the density associated with this site that were essentially fixed, that did not provide a lot of other opportunities for movement in these other areas. So while we do hear you in terms of participation in the GBIP, and that's certainly something that we would like to be able to do in certain cases, that's not one that we can't hear given the other community benefits involved. I think it's also important to point out that the staff standard site plan conditions have 2 separate sets of sustainability conditions. And one of them is specific to non-green building incentive projects. So there is that optionality written into the staff site plan conditions. And that is a condition that we've agreed to, and we've actually agreed to go above and beyond on some of those elements related to sustainability. So that's how we got to where we are. And we think we've got a very compelling community benefits package with $11 million toward affordable housing and significant improvements to the open space across the street and to transportation. So that's kind of the thinking and the rationale behind where we ended up on a lot of these things.
Thank you. We'll go to Commissioner Bagley, then I just have one comment, and then we'll move on to the next.
I get it. But these are very high-end condos. They're not going to be just for everybody. I'm familiar with the Penzance portfolio. The Pierce is a gorgeous building. I would tend to believe, not an expert on this, but I am in residential real estate, and I would tend to believe that condo owners in this day and age would be more than welcome, possibly if there's other alternatives to the glass, I personally have invested in very fashionable looking stickers and things that deter birds from going into windows. So if you can't afford it that way, I would suggest that you appear to be bird friendly with the people that you are trying to get to sell your places to, that these options exist for them. And some of them are very attractive. You can barely perceive that they are there, but they do prevent the birds from killing themselves. So, it does become on a larger basis what's the right thing to do. So if you could look at that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I have a bigger picture point just about the fact that the 2015 sector plan has different standards than our more updated 2019 community energy plan. And while we're doing our comprehensive plan update over the next year, it would be great if there was a way for our plans to come into alignment to at least make sure that they are taking they're addressing the issues that we're having right now. So the fact that we have a plan that came out 4 years earlier so that we have a lower standard for what the lead should be. Maybe in the future, our sector plans say like use the latest, community energy plan goals so that the community energy plan can update, and then it kind of retroactively updates important aspects of plans that have already been approved. That way we aren't looking at outdated plans. So thank you.
Duly noted, yes.
So let's move on to public spaces. Any questions about Gateway Park or other public spaces or green spaces? We've got a beautiful amenity space for the residents here with lots of biophilia on it. Okay, and then finally, community benefits, including affordable housing. Any questions about the contribution instead of on-site? Okay. Commissioner Berkey.
Not a question. I'm just going to weigh in here briefly because I think I get a good handle on everything. I think it's, I know during the SPRC, folks had expressed preference for on-site units. I think the analysis of how that works out in the sector plan was quite thorough, so I don't have any follow-ups. I'm just saying this maybe for the benefit of myself, maybe my colleagues are not. It's $11 million. That's a lot of money. We're challenged right now with AHIF. We've been able to continue to fund it, but we've got a lot more projects than funds to support. The benefit of on-site units, of course, is they're on-site, so they're where a project is being built. But the most obvious benefit is that they're going to get built. If you've got a LIHTC project, you've got to go through those processes. It's very difficult to get affordable housing built. So we can put money into AHIF. It doesn't guarantee that something actually gets built or maybe gets built near Roslyn. That being said, sort of similar to Commissioner Weir's comment about the policy we have, when it comes to affordable housing contributions, we've got our ordinance, and then we have sector plans sometimes which get us more benefit, right, when these site plans come up. I think this is a lot of value. Personally, would I like to see more value provided? Absolutely. And I think that's why the Housing Commission is certainly looking into this right now, and that's something that the county board may consider and other folks may consider. But this is sort of the scheme we have. So that's a very long-winded way of saying I think this is a lot of value. On-site would be great, but $11 million could support a pretty significant project near Roslyn. And I have a pretty good feeling there's several that may be coming down the pipeline here in the next year or so. So I think this is a big win for our community and affordable housing.
Okay, any other questions or comments about community benefits? Okay, so then we can go to motions, but our subcommittee chair, okay, so why don't we go to Commissioner Lantelmi for our first motion?
Yeah, I move that the Planning Commission recommend that the county board adopt the attached rezoning ordinance to rezone the subject area located at 1901 and 1911 Fort Myer Drive, RPC number 16-020-001-002 from S3A Special District to CO Roslyn Mixed Use Roslyn District.
Do I have a second? Commissioner Steinberger.
Second.
Okay. Would you like to speak to your motion?
No.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, I don't want to vote without all of us here. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Berkey. Okay, we will just take a second to get all of our commissioners here.
Anybody else lose power? No. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, good.
Okay,
Back.
the motion has been introduced, the first motion from the county manager's recommended motions. So we are now ready to vote. Commissioner Lantelmi,
Aye.
Commissioner Weir,
Aye.
Commissioner Patel is not here. Commissioner Steinberger,
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley,
Aye.
Commissioner Guevara is not here, right? She didn't join virtually. Commissioner Berkey,
Aye.
Commissioner Striner is not here. Commissioner Robertson.
Aye.
And I also say aye, so that passes unanimously. Would someone like to introduce the second motion? A second motion?
I'll handle that. The second motion would be that I move the planning commission recommend the county board discontinue the existing Roslyn Gateway phase development site plan.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Lantelmi. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I think everything's been covered.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, then we will go to a vote. Commissioner Lantelmi?
Aye.
Commissioner Weir?
Aye.
Commissioner Steinberger?
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley?
Aye.
Commissioner Berkey?
Aye.
Commissioner Robertson?
Aye.
And I also say aye, so that passed unanimously. Is there another motion?
Madam Chair, I move that the planning commission recommend that the county board adopt the attached site plan ordinance for SPLA 24-00040, AKA site plan number 419, to expand the site area by approximately 2,058 square feet and construct a mixed-use development consisting of 3 towers with up to 9.92 FAR, including up to 95,706 square feet of residential gross floor area and up to 14,584 square feet of retail gross floor area. For the property located at 1901 and 1911 Fort Myer Drive, RPC numbers 16-020-001, 002, and 006, with modifications of zoning ordinance requirements, including additional density, reduced parking requirements, density exclusions, and other modifications as necessary to achieve the proposed development plan.
Do I have a second? Commissioner Steinberger, second it.
Second.
Okay. No speaking to your motion, no discussion on the motion. Okay, we'll go to a vote. Commissioner Lantelmi?
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Weir?
Aye.
Commissioner Steinberger?
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley?
Aye.
Commissioner Berkey?
Aye.
Commissioner Robertson?
Aye.
And I also say aye. That one passes unanimously. Thank you very much to our public speakers, to our applicant, and to staff for all of your
We
hard
still have a
work.
vacation.
Pardon?
Vacation.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have one more.
Am I correct that we don't have a corresponding presentation?
Oh, no, I did have a slide in the staff presentation. And
The
I can go
slide,
back to it if
that's
we
what
need
it
to.
is.
Yeah, but it's just to make the finding that's in the recommendation.
Okay, so I've got it. Thank you. I move that the planning commission find that the ordinance to vacate easements for vacate easements for public street and utilities purposes on portions of the properties owned by Roslyn Gateway LLC located at 1901 and 1911 North Fort Mile Drive, identified as RPC numbers 16-020-001, 002, and 006. 2, a portion of the 20th Street North right-of-way abutting the northern boundary of RPC number 16-020-002. 3, portion of the North Moore Street right-of-way abutting the eastern boundaries of RPC numbers 16-020-001, -002, and -006. And 4, a portion of the 19th Street North right-of-way abutting the southern boundaries of RPC numbers 16-020-001 and -006, all with conditions, is subsequently in accord with the comprehensive plan of Arlington County, Virginia.
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Lantelmi. Okay. No speaking to the motion, no discussion. We'll go to a vote. Commissioner Lantelmi.
Aye.
Commissioner Weir.
Aye.
Commissioner Steinberger.
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley.
Aye.
Commissioner Berkey.
Aye.
Commissioner Robertson.
Aye.
And I also say aye. That passes unanimously. Is there a second one? To authorize the real
My
estate bureau
recollection
to-
is that the only motion before us would be the finding, and that we typically don't subsequently recommend. Mr. Watson, if you disagree, would you please let me know? Or Mr. Pfeiffer or Ms. Johnson.
Yeah, you're correct. It's just the finding.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
So then we're done with this item?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much to our public speakers, to our applicant, and to our staff. I'm really looking forward to the improved street conditions that this project will bring, as well as new residential and retail in Roslyn. So thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk, can you introduce our next item, please?
Yes, thank you. Item number 8, since we have already voted on item number 7, is SPLA 24-00036, the site plan amendment to site plan 187 Boston 1, which will also include an ordinance to vacate a portion of an easement for public street and utility purposes on the property of 4601 Fairfax Drive. We have Mike Halowski Michael Halewski to present this item from the real estate office. Mhm.
Yep. So it's all going to be included. Ready to go?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Matt Pfeiffer with the Arlington County Department of Community Planning, Housing and Development Planning Division. The item we're going to be discussing this evening is the Ballston 1 project. I have a number of staff members here to help answer questions. We have Sergio Viricochea in DES Development Services. We have Mike Halewski in DES Real Estate Bureau, and we have Alex McMillan in the Housing Division. So the items, okay, that's odd. My slide. All right, here we go. The items we'll be discussing today are a major site plan amendment to site plan number 187 to remove an existing office building, construct a new residential building with 328 units. Also proposed is a vacation of a sliver of public street and utilities easement remaining after dedication of the underlying land in fee to the county. So the subject site is located at 4601 Fairfax Drive. It is currently developed with a 12-story office building containing approximately 229,000 square feet of GFA and a 2-level below-grade parking structure. The site borders the Marymount University campus to the east and the Ballston Wetland Park to the west. Bluemont Junction Trail traverses through the site along its western border under a public easement. The site's Fairfax Drive frontage contains a trail spur connecting to the Nellie Custis Trail. As you can see from this image on your right, the top of the existing garage slab protrudes above grade along the site's Fairfax Drive frontage. The top of the slab does meet the grade elsewhere on the site. And so we're going to discuss this feature a little bit more as we get into the presentation. As I mentioned previously, the applicant's proposing to dedicate North Wakefield Street to the county in fee. Currently, it exists as a public street and utilities easement through the site. There is a sliver of the existing street and utilities easement that will be located within the future curb line on North Wakefield Street. So the applicant is proposing to vacate this sliver and then rededicate as a public sidewalk easement. So let's talk about a few of the adopted plans and policies that are applicable to the site plan. Let's see, there we go. To review, the site is zoned CO 2.5. which is not proposed to change. As mentioned previously, there is an existing site plan that was approved in 1981 and constructed in 1986. Just a little bit about CO 2.5. The base density is 115 units per acre, and the height is 16 stories max. The site is designated medium office apartment hotel on the general land use plan, which corresponds with the CO 2.5 zoning district. No change to the site's GLUP designation is proposed. The site is within the Ballston sector plan area, known as Section 3, also known as the Pocahontas Tract. While there's not much site-specific guidance within the Ballston sector plan, there is general guidance on land use, which recommends a mix of uses to include both commercial and residential, and a general taper in height away from the Ballston Metro Station. Fairfax Drive is envisioned as a gateway into Ballston. There are some other applicable policies, which include the residential parking guidelines. What's applicable to this site is a minimum of 0.3 spaces per unit. Also applicable is the Forestry and Natural Resources Plan, which contains guidance for biophilic design. It also provides a tree canopy target reference from the Council of Government Standards. For this site, the target is 25% tree canopy. And then the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance contains regulations related to the resource protection area, which encroaches onto this site. It also contains regulations that are separate from COG for tree canopy. Finally, we have the County Board policy on transformation of commercial office buildings in Arlington. This is really important to keep in mind for this site. What this recommends is that decommissioning obsolete office buildings is a public priority for the county. And one of the recommendations within that policy is that because this is a public priority, we have to balance this goal with other adopted plans and policies. Okay, so some analysis about the proposal. So first, we talk about the development proposal. So the applicant is proposing to demolish the existing office building on site, but would retain the below-grade parking garage. They're proposing construction of a new 7-story or 82-foot residential building containing 328 units. Applicant is proposing to exceed the base density by 65 units. They're also proposing modifications to zoning ordinance standards for additional density exclusions, residential parking ratio, compact parking percentage, drive aisle widths, placement and coverage standards, and other modifications. A lot of these modifications are related to the retention of the existing parking garage. So the proposed site plan is in conformance with the GLUP and the Ballston sector plan. However, again, the proposed retention of the existing garage presents constraints, which resulted in some difficulty achieving some standards, such as the COG tree canopy target, though they are meeting the Chesapeake Bay Ordinance Preservation Ordinance standard. There also had difficulty achieving the exact guidance on tree pit dimensions and soil volume. Nevertheless, the applicant did work with staff on creative solutions to these issues, including providing continual soil panels on North Wakefield Street, which are suspended underneath the sidewalk. The transformation of commercial office buildings policy guides us to balance the trade-offs, again, of removing outdated office supply from the market with other county policy priorities. So in this case, staff supports the applicant's proposal as they've really mitigated the impacts to the extent feasible. And there are environmental benefits inherent in retention of the garage itself. Furthermore, the applicant is in conformance with the FNRP biophilic design guidance and will be providing on and off-site plantings in accordance with the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance, which I will get into on the next slide. So as I mentioned, the site is within the resource protection area. The existing building is within the resource protection area. However, the applicant submitted a water quality impact assessment as part of their site plan application, which was reviewed by staff. Staff did find that there was an additional encroachment into the resource protection area as a result of the redevelopment. As a result of that, The applicant went to the Chesapeake Bay Ordinance Review Committee on June 17th to hear an exception to the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance. The CBORC did grant the exception subject to some mitigation. The mitigation includes maximizing tree canopy on site, an annual phosphorus load reduction amount, as well as other stormwater management and BMP practices, and off-site plantings within the RPA bordering the site. And this is reflected in a proposed site plan condition. Another item that was discussed at Site Plan Review Committee was architectural design. We heard comments at SPRC that there were some concerns about the architectural vocabulary contributing to a sense of boxiness and some other issues. The applicant did make refinements to the architectural design to streamline the architectural vocabulary and color palette. They also eliminated building overhangs by providing a stone colonnade at the corner of North Wakefield Street and Fairfax Drive. Staff supports the proposed architectural design as it does mitigate many of the concerns expressed at SPRC. It also provides a harmonious gateway into Ballston in concert with the Ballston Holiday Inn development across the street. One minor item that I wanted to mention in terms of the site plan conditions. So the applicant has requested a 5-year term of validity for the site plan. The standard site plan condition recommends, or the standard site plan condition requires a 3-year term of validity. Staff is not supporting a 5-year term at this time. The site plan condition language tends to evolve, and we always like the opportunity after 3 years if a project has not been built to update those conditions to administrative standards, again, if it's not been built in 3 years. So we disagree with the applicant there on that one, but I did want to mention that this is what the applicant is requesting. So this site plan was reviewed at 2 SPRC meetings. We also had an online engagement for the site plan. Some of the major topics of discussion were a desire for additional height and housing generation at the site, comments on architectural design, which we discussed, desire for more tree canopy and plantings on site, the discussion about the treatment of the Fairfax Drive shared use path, discussion of the Fairfax Drive cross-section, a connection to the Bluemont Junction Trail, stormwater management, and affordable housing. We did receive a number of letters of correspondence from various stakeholders, including very extensive correspondence with the Waycroft Woodlawn Civic Association. So staff supports the subject site plan. The site plan will remove an underutilized office building while providing an appropriate balance with other county goals and objectives. The applicant will contribute $2 million to the Affordable Housing Investment Fund to achieve a portion of the requested additional density. Plus, they'll provide a contribution for the base, or they will have the option to either provide a contribution or on or off-site units for the base density. The applicant is also going to provide upgraded streetscapes on North Wakefield Street and Fairfax Drive, including a new northbound bike lane on North Wakefield Street. The applicant will commit to on and off-site plantings and a phosphorus load reduction metric to mitigate the impacts of the RPA encroachment. The applicant is going to commit to participate in the Green Building Incentive Program at the 0.25 FAR tier to achieve the remainder of the proposed additional density. Once again, just a review of the process. This was heard by CBORC again on June 17th, which did grant the exception to the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance. It was heard by the Transportation Commission on June 30th, which recommended unanimous approval. This will go to the Housing Commission tomorrow night and will be heard by the County Board on July 19th. So staff is recommending adoption of the ordinance to approve the site plan amendment with proposed modifications subject to the recommended conditions of the staff report. We are also recommending that the PC find that the ordinance to vacate a portion of the public street easement is in substantial accord with the comprehensive plan. Thank you very much. This concludes my presentation and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And now the applicant has 10 minutes.
So good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I'm Matt Roberts with the Hirschler Law Firm on behalf of the applicant. Thomas is going to go ahead and pull up our presentation here real quick for us. Wonderful. So happy to be here tonight with the members of our development team, including members from Penzance, BKV, VICA, and Wells and Associates to present on the Ballston One Apartments project. Next slide, please, Thomas. Matt's done a great job, always happy to have him steal a little bit of our thunder for us. But just as Matt mentioned, we are talking about the 4601 North Fairfax Drive site, aging office building, kind of a common story happening in the county and the region. So time to pivot and move to a more viable use, which we're currently proposing with 328 units in a 7-story structure. And as Matt mentioned, importantly, for this project, retaining the underground garage. Next slide, please. Next slide, please, Thomas. Great. So just to give you some quick context, I'm sure you've walked past this building any number of times, but again, it's one of those buildings built in the 1980s, doesn't have a great urban context today. As you can see, specifically along Fairfax Drive, the building doesn't sit near the urban edge. The shared use path really is not living up to its full potential, and so those are some things that we want to correct. Next slide, please. Similar set of conditions on North Wakefield Street. In particular, I'd point you to the large curb cut into the office building, which will go away with this redesign of the site, as well as on the back end of the site, we have access to the wetland park trail, but simply, no relationship between the building and that trail. Next slide, please. So I'll move through this fairly quickly. As Matt mentioned, we've done a lot of work on the architecture. This was the second option proposed at SPRC2, and again, dealing with overhangs and some of the horizontality of the building, as well as the materials palette. What's ultimately being proposed in the next slide is what you have before you tonight, which extends the gateway features of the building both at the peak as well as at the ground level in terms of the gateway experience with the landscaping plan and the shared use path. We've also significantly reduced the materials changes across the entirety of the building. Next slide, please. Again, at North Wakefield Street, you can see the changes. One more, please, Thomas. Where now you have this additional pergola structure extending the gateway, as well as at the base with the stone materials, eliminating that extension over the sidewalk. So we now feel we have a great set of architecture along this gateway frontage. Next slide, please. So just to highlight at the base, we had a lot of questions about where the entry for the building was going to be located. Just to say it, this is actually located further up on Wakefield Street, eliminating potential conflicts for people trying to get into the building with all the traffic happening at the intersection. I would also note we have on-street parking in this area for short-term parking and drop-off opportunities. Next slide, please. So as we go down Wakefield and see the service drive, you'll see in the next slide how the materials palette has changed here again to something of a more urban edge. And really you can see along all frontages of this building a number of balconies to really add eyes on the street. We've also improved the service drive to a great extent with landscaping to make that a much more inviting opportunity down to the wetland park trail. Next slide, please. Just at the base, one thing to highlight, these will be ground floor patio units, which really, again, adds more eyes on the street, direct activity for this building where, none really exists today when people go home from the office building. And it's complementing what's happening above with the balconies. Next slide. One thing we're really proud of is what we've done on the western edge of the building next to the wetland park trail. Specifically in this area, in addition to the landscaping, we've added an additional biophilic element with the native vine structure featured directly on the building, which actually is going to extend over the garage as well. So we think that's a wonderful addition to the building that we're happy to add here. Next slide, please. As we zoom out a little bit, you can start to see the context of this building within Ballston. And specifically, the next two slides are going to show you where we're going in terms of the relationship with the Holiday Inn project on the south side of the street. And you can see how the gateway gets created here on both the western edge as well as the eastern edge. Next slide, please, Thomas. And then looking eastbound, you can see how the taper and building heights called for in the Ballston sector plan starts to come together. Next slide, please. Just to talk a little bit about the site design and layout, we have quite a lot of good features to work with here along all of our frontages. And as you can see in this slide, overall, we will be providing, an enormous number of trees to maximize that both within the interior of the property as well as around the edges. We have a great opportunity along the Wetland Park Trail as well. Next slide, please. Just in terms of Fairfax Drive, just to highlight a couple of the features here, this is going to be a 17-foot minimum right-of-way. Again, the constraint of the garage there and the retaining wall that needs to remain kind of limits the overall width, but we will be providing a 12-foot wide shared use path for both bicyclists and pedestrians. Next slide, please. Similarly, on Wakefield, we'll be redoing that sidewalk, removing the curb cut, ultimately with a 9-foot clear sidewalk, as well as the new tree panels. Next slide, please. We're really excited about what's going on with the service road. In particular, in this area, as I mentioned, we'll be adding bioretention planters up against the building, as well as a planting strip up against the roadway, and ultimately a 6-foot side for pedestrians. Next slide, please. One feature to highlight here is that we've also bumped out the sidewalk in this area to reduce the north-south pedestrian access. So that's now 6 feet less than it is today. And so that'll ultimately be a much safer crossing for pedestrians in the future. Next slide, please. Just to highlight, because SPRC talked quite a bit about the landscaping and tree canopy, we can certainly come back to a lot of this. Overall, the planning for this site is going to feature pollinator-friendly and native vegetation. On the next slide, you can see just a very quick sampling of what we would propose for the building. Next slide, please, Thomas. So just again, around the site, you can see on Fairfax Drive how we're helping to create the gateway experience for pedestrians through the landscaping panel, specifically up against the building, how that continues along the Wakefield Street edge. And we're really happy, as I said, with the service drive, as well as all the native vegetation that we'll be adding along the Wetland Park Trail. Next slide, please. Tree canopy, obviously a big topic of discussion for this site. The thing to know from this slide is basically that we are meeting and exceeding our baseline canopy requirements under the Chesapeake Bay Act. And in terms of the county policy standards, we are maximizing what we can do around the site, achieving almost 16% tree canopy. In terms of what those COG standards say, it's important to note that while 25% is a goal, ultimately each site does need to be taken on its own merits, and that's specifically in the COG guidance. Next slide, please. Just to talk very briefly about transportation, the site is well accessed for pedestrians. From a vehicle generation standpoint, we are going to have fewer AM and peak hour trips and will ultimately participate in a TMP plan. Next slide, please. In terms of pedestrian access, well accessed from all sorts of adjacent sidewalk networks. Ultimately, the score for this site would get us to what is considered a walker's paradise, and so very little need for a car here. Next slide, please. Similarly, with bicycle facilities, as the commission knows, we have all sorts of access to trail networks in and around the site, as well as that shared use path, which will be continuing. Next slide, please. Buses as well, lots of great bus access here, number of bus stops in the area, great access to Metro, and certainly when the second entrance comes online, we'll have that opportunity as well. Next slide, please. Just to highlight bicycle parking real quick, there will be sufficient bicycle parking both at grade and in the garage, so for visitors as well as residents and guests, as well as short-term parking along the street. Next slide, please. In terms of site circulation, we will ultimately be providing site circulation in very similar fashion to what we have out there today. We are going to have 228 total parking spaces, but retaining 107 flexible use spaces, and that's really given the fact that we have this existing garage to play around with. I would highlight in terms of EV charging, we are going to be exceeding on day one with 6%, as well as 23% EV ready, which also exceeds the requirements. Next slide, please. Just in terms of pedestrian crossings, we are going to have an alignment with the south side with what Ballston Holiday Inn is proposing, so we've aligned our curb cuts to that. Next slide, please. I do just want to highlight very quickly, if the commission will allow, this building is achieving the Green Building Incentive Policy at the 0.25 level, bird-friendly class, dark sky friendly, EV charging, as I mentioned. Next slide, please. And just last but not least on this point, this will be an all-electric building. And if the commission will allow, I would like to just highlight for just one quick second, we have had some delays in getting these slides to move, so I apologize for the delay there. Next slide, please, Thomas. We'll leave you with this. Matt's talked about the community benefits for the site, so we won't, belabor that point. I do want to highlight stormwater management for this building. It's been a big topic of discussion with the community. Candidly, the short answer is there's really none out there today. This is a building built long before modern stormwater management standards. This building is going to contribute significantly with new stormwater management and BMP facilities. Approximately 24% of that roof is going to be green roof with additional planters around the site as well as engineered soils. And so ultimately we have the numbers we can walk through for you, but at the end of the day, this will be a vast improvement for stormwater management. There's much more that we could highlight and certainly happy to walk through that as the commission asks, but thank you very much for your time and looking forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, do we have public speakers?
We have 2 speakers. We'll start with Bernie Byrne, who is online virtually, and we'll follow up with Ms. Joan McIntyre for C2E2 Commission.
Okay. Perfect. Dr. Byrne, you have 2 minutes.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes. This project is neither biophilic nor sustainable. Make most of the roof green, not just 25% as proposed, or place solar panels on the roof. The light shining through the windows facing the Boston Wetland Park at night will attract many moths and other insects. These will disrupt their life cycles and prevent their reproduction. The applicant must develop a site plan condition that requires all applicants of the building units facing the park to sign leases that require them to shade their windows at night. This is important. You're near a park. The conceptual landscape, the project's conceptual landscape plan does not identify any shrubs or perennials. This is not acceptable, and they've changed the rules to prevent that in the future. A plant list was presented at the SPRC, and briefly shown here, contains 2 milkweeds, butterfly milkweed and swamp milkweed. However, monarch butterflies lay few eggs on butterfly milkweed. Swamp milkweed often disappears within 5 years from plantings when its soil dries out. In contrast, more than 80% of monarchs migrating in Mexico are fed on common milkweed, Asclepias syriaca, as caterpillars. Common milkweed thrives in both dry place and ditches. Therefore, add common milkweed to the plant list. This is very important. Install much of it in the bioretention area and elsewhere on the site. This is one of the major deficiencies of the plan. The plant list protected the street at the site plan at SBRC meeting contains 15 plants that are either not native to North America or native to North America but not native to Arlington and its vicinity. The list also contains 16 cultivars. None of these are acceptable. Remove all 31 plants from the plant list. They don't support pollinators. The tree trenches are only 5 foot wide. They should be 6 feet according to the rules. Reduce the sidewalk width to accommodate those tree trenches. Otherwise, trees are going to die. Well, all tree trenches should contain native flowering forests.
Mr. Byrne, your time is up.
None should contain grass.
Thank you, Mr. Byrne. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we have Ms. McIntyre from C2E2.
Good evening. I'm Joan McIntyre, speaking on part of the Climate Change, Energy, and Environment Commission. C2E2 considers the project to mostly align with what's needed to address the climate crisis and meet Arlington's climate goals. Based on our evaluation checklist, we score the project at 69%, higher than many other projects, but indicating opportunities to excel. While the project meets the required LEED 4.0 gold, an outdated standard at this point, we urge the applicant to seek more rigorous certification, such as LEED 4.0 Platinum or LEED 4.1 Gold. A plus for the project, not highlighted in the identified sustainability features, is the reuse of the existing garage and use of wood framing for the building, which together will reduce the embodied carbon and thus global warming potential for the building. We encourage the applicant to also divert from landfill most of the materials from deconstruction of the building and to seek FSC certified wood and other low carbon and environmentally sustainable materials. We applaud the applicant for designing an all-electric building, which will ensure that the building can operate with zero carbon emissions once the electric grid has shifted to renewable energy. On energy efficiency, the energy model indicates that the energy savings could be higher than the required 24%. We encourage the applicant to pursue the opportunities identified in the energy models to further energy and cost savings for their tenants. We also encourage the applicant to explore options for high efficient heat pump hot water heaters and dryers rather than electric resistance. The applicant should also incorporate enough of the electrical infrastructure necessary to be able to expand EV charging to meet full demand in the future. The project's landscape design is an improvement from the existing site with more native plants and some expansion of the tree canopy, despite the constraints due to the reuse of the garage. We urge the applicant to continue to explore opportunities to enhance natural landscaping and also educate residents to reducing light pollution to help protect birds, insects, and other wildlife on Bellston Wetlands Park. The county might want to consider working with VDOT to narrow Fairfax Drive that could allow for more room for trees, slow traffic, and better separate between pedestrian and bikers. Similarly, stormwater management will clearly be improved, but the county could work with the applicant to identify additional measures that might reduce stormwater runoff and the impact on Lover Run, especially during increasingly intense storms such as we had this evening. C2E2 encourages the applicant to go the extra mile and make the project an exemplar, demonstrating the feasibility of building high-performance buildings with low carbon footprint.
Thank you very much. Okay, and do we have a Transportation Commission report, please?
Yes, we do. This came up at our last Transportation Commission meeting on June 30th. And we did vote unanimously to recommend the project and voted unanimously for the finding that the vacation that's proposed is substantially in compliance with the consistent with the master transportation plan and the COM plan. Our discussion, for example, on parking, well, that recognizes that the existing garage is going to stay. So it really sort of removed that as an issue. And actually that garage is one of the two things that really dominated the direction of the discussion. The garage was one item. The second item was VDOT controlling that part of Fairfax Drive. This is the one part of Fairfax Drive that did not end up being taken over by the county a few years ago. That said, that really dictates what can and cannot happen transportation-wise around this site. Because the garage is staying, that means that knee wall also has to stay. And because VDOT owns the right-of-way, VDOT has to consent to any changes on lanes. Recognizing that that part of Fairfax Drive effectively works as the exit and entrance ramps to 66. Traffic moves very fast in both directions because of that. And the lanes are quite wide at that point. We would love to see the part south, along Fairfax Drive on this site be wide enough to allow not just sidewalk, but also continuation of the cycle track, which is just to the east along the Marymount property. That can't happen because one, the garage is what it is. We cannot move that, which was a good reason. We recognize the environmental benefits of keeping the existing garage. But not being able to narrow the VDOT right of way, that totally constrains the ability to do anything other than a shared use path and make it difficult to put trees on the site too. So that really dominated our discussion, is the frustration with, frankly, we feel that in many ways staff and VDOT really don't coordinate. It's up to the developer to work with VDOT rather than through staff on that. We've seen this in other projects before us, and this came up at the Transportation Commission meeting, that frustration that VDOT owned right away has been the subject of a number of our recent site plans and some that are already in the pipeline. So anyway, we also recognize that why there cannot be a connection between the private street to the north and the trail by the beaver pond. But we also appreciate the vacations for Wakefield, which produces a much wider, bit more usable Wakefield Street for the purposes of this building and for pedestrians. So, overall, as I said, we are in favor of the project 11-1. I mean, 11, it was actually, let's see, 11-0. So it's, it was unanimous. So that's pretty much the Transportation Commission report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Commissioner Bagley for your committee chair report.
Yes, so I distributed this tonight, and for public listening tonight, as well as possibly viewing this presentation later, just for clarification, the SPRC chair report is basically a summary of the SPRC process, and it mirrors the staff report in case there are any questions about what that is. Basically, I'm not going to go back through all of the points because a lot of them were discussed by you and also by staff as well as the applicant. I would say the topics that we should discuss, if anyone still has any remaining questions about architecture, tree canopy and landscaping, any remaining transportation concerns. And again, as I say that, please see all of the ones that we did discuss, address, and could do what we could do with. Stormwater is going to be, it was a big topic, and affordable housing, and I would also say construction. Okay, and one other thing I do want to add, just for the record, as a former Civic Association president and for a planning commissioner, I think I've been on 6 years, I would say that the follow-up to this SPRC was unprecedented on behalf of staff to make sure that every question, they went through every little question, they reviewed the tapes, they did everything to make sure every question would have been answered prior to getting to this point. So I just want to commend staff again on doing that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so then let's open it up to discussion. I'll go quickly through the standard agenda items. If you have questions or comments, stop me. Otherwise, we'll just move through the agenda. Site location, land use, and site design. Questions or comments? Okay, building form or architecture. Okay, transportation. Any questions or comments about that? Okay, sustainability and biophilia. Commissioner Bagley.
I just want to follow up on a few things. During the SPRC process, we talked about bird-friendly glass, mostly on the side that faces Wetlands Park. Is that how we ended it? Is that what you're recommending or going to be following?
Hi, I'm Benjamin Yance with BKV Group. We're going to be doing bird-friendly glass within that 8-foot to 36-foot zone around the perimeter of the building.
Okay.
That's our intention.
Okay, and what about the suggestion, because of the wildlife that is in Wetlands Park? I go there a lot. I love it. Encouraging folks who will be having their windows facing, like some sort of encouragement to help the environment, help the wildlife. Will there be something that you might at least encourage residents to do?
Well, Matt.
Yeah, sure. So I think there's a couple things happening there. One is sort of a natural tendency of residents, who are up against public rights of way to, especially at that ground level, to not want that sort of intrusive nature, especially in later evening hours. And so I think that's going to have sort of a natural effect on people shading their windows and things like that. In terms of exterior and interior lighting, it's really minimal. As we said, we're dealing with dark sky here. There's not a ton of larger lighting around the building, especially at the exterior. So I think the general factors in the market for how people are likely going to naturally react are going to go a long way for this building. In terms of what else can be done, it's certainly something that we can explore with the marketing team as this project gets underway.
I appreciate that. I also have a couple other quick questions. the, for the 16 cultivars and the common milkweed, can you revisit that based on Dr. Burns' comments?
Sure. Yeah. So the preliminary landscape plan that's in the 4.1 application right now will get updated, finalized with staff through the CEP process. And the list we presented earlier is just a very broad list of possible options. And so our landscaping team at BKV is looking through all that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, I actually had a question about Seaborg. Is that how you say it? Cyborg?
Seaborg.
Seaborg's recommendation to maximize tree canopy to the degree practicable. How is that enforceable? Like, are you taking that recommendation and then telling them how many trees to put up based on that, or can you explain that more?
Not exactly. So we will have a site plan condition that actually has kind of that exact language in there to the extent practicable. So that we're talking about both on-site and off-site planting. So for the on-site plantings, they're going to need to show on their tree preservation plan that they are preserving the trees that they showed the Seaborg that they were preserving. So that'll be one mechanism. Secondly, they'll have to do on the final landscape plan, they'll have to work with our urban forester and our county landscape designer to ensure that they are planting, in generally the areas they've shown within the RPA that's shown on the conceptual landscape plan.
Okay. And then I also had a question about dog relief areas or pet relief areas. Are there designated areas, or are people just going to take their pets all over the pond? And
Sure. So there are no present, there's no present spaces in the garage designated for that. Part of the reason for that is, Penzance has done a number of these buildings across multiple markets. I think, Josh, certainly feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think the experience has been, if they are built, they really is not actually a large tendency for them to get used. I think when you also look at the number of folks utilizing that trail today, there's certainly opportunities to educate internally and things like that. But we are one building amongst an entire population using the trail. The overall contribution is very likely to be minimal from that perspective. But the more direct reason why we have not included that is market experience. It can be built. It just doesn't have a tendency to get utilized.
Or even like an outdoor, like my condo building has an outdoor pet relief area that gets used, especially when it's raining because it's undercover.
Sure. For this particular building, the exterior of the building is pretty much built out between landscaping, building, and trying to create that urban edge. We have the interior courtyard. I'm not sure that would be the right spot for that exactly, but point taken.
Okay. Other questions on sustainability in biophilia? Commissioner Robertson.
How large is your stormwater vault?
2,500 cubic feet, if I'm not mistaken, Jeff.
The capacity, I guess, actually is what I should have asked.
Yeah, 2,500 cubic feet.
Cubic feet, I'm sorry, okay. And do you know how the vault under the Cardinal Elementary School, 4 million gallons, drains 222 acres, accommodates a 10-year storm? Do you know what sort of size of storm this accommodates?
Sure. So per county and state standards, these are built to the 1, 2, and 10-year storm. So we have data for all of those events.
Thank you.
Okay. Questions or comments about public spaces? Okay, community benefits. Okay, and then process phasing or construction. I do have, go ahead.
Two things, as I mentioned at the last SPRC, if we could make sure that, because when we did the walking tour there, it was very clear that there was a lot of wildlife, even at the front of the building, with all the bushes and, the landscaping there. So as to avoid construction during bird nesting season, if that can just be done so that you're not tearing trees or things down that would have birds and little nests in them.
Sure. Josh Bowden, Penzance. We are the
applicant. We anticipate this project to take about 33 months from start to begin at 10. So at some point, we probably will be doing some form of construction. The demolition, based on how we anticipate it happening today, is probably during the winter once our tenants vacate. And so the trajectory you're on would allow for that. But of course, we would have to work towards that goal.
I understand. As long as you can be noting this, it kind of messes with people's brains to see that happening. And last but not least, throughout the SPRC process, we also talked about, since you have an existing building there with stuff in it, we didn't want it all to go to the landfill, and we were really encouraging you. Have you made some progress with that?
Yeah, so we
Thank you.
talked with the Sustainable Building Partners, which is the environmental consultant for the team. The math that they've run is approximately 75% of that is going to recycling or some other use. So a large, the overwhelming majority is being diverted from landfills.
Great. And I had one process question, which just if, as of right now, site conditions are written that the site plan is approved for 3 years. That's right?
That's correct. That's what staff is recommending.
Okay, great. Okay, are we ready for motions? Oh, Commissioner Steinberger?
That did remind me, could you kind of concisely explain why you would be seeking the 5 years versus 3 years?
So we're requesting 5 years for a couple different reasons. I think primarily this building, even though it is an office building like many others, it has tenants that are unlike many others, even perhaps in Arlington. The primary remaining tenants are GSA tenants, and critical sort of path tenants as well for the federal government. What they have is in their lease, the power to exercise eminent domain over the space. And so the reason for requesting the additional time is that while we do anticipate they will be rolling off their leases as, on the timeline that we've have set out currently, there is the possibility, given everything that's happening at the federal government level right now, in terms of where these tenants are going, what projects are getting done, that they could exercise that authority and involuntarily require us to extend the life of the existing building. What I think that brings in, and especially in light of CMRI, is we have two options at that point if we're at 3 years and suddenly we're extending. One is to pay a significant amount of money to extend under the newly adopted fee schedule. The other is accelerate our final building permit and vest the 4.1 site plan as it is. I think one discrepancy I would have with what staff said earlier is that we don't actually have to build this to vest it. We have to accelerate it to the point of final building permit. There is quite a lot that happens, and it is a very expensive endeavor. And so we have a known issue right now, which is this potential situation with eminent domain in the building. And in light of that fact, in certain county policies that have been enacted just within the last year or so, we felt the request was legitimate here and worthwhile for the commission to recommend and for the board to adopt.
Thank you. I do think I'm going to pivot to staff on that. It does sound like this is a somewhat unique scenario in which regarding the type of tenant that we're talking about here, and I don't know the federal government that currently exists. Have we been in a similar scenario before, or what would be a scenario where, if ever, staff has recommended a longer validity period?
I'll take the first part of that. I'm not aware of a similar scenario with federal government tenants.
Okay.
I think that, there have been instances in the past where we have, the board has approved 5-year terms. I think given those experiences, we tend to now favor 3-year terms just because, condition language does get updated fairly regularly. And that, a lot of the times is commensurate with, just updated administrative practices in the zoning office and DES and other departments. And, it gets difficult and cumbersome for them to have to look at the specific site plan to, that may have different regulations than others. And so we wanted to reserve the opportunity after 3 years, stick with our standard. to update any administrative language as the case may be. Understand that would be a cost to the developer in terms of submitting an application, but I think at this point we would recommend that, if this is a known issue and they cannot pull the building permit prior to that 3-year term expiring, our recommendation is just submit a site plan application to extend it.
I left it on. To do this site plan application to extend it, that does have the filing fees that were just mentioned, or
Correct.
that, and what is the amount of those fees again?
I do not recall off the top of my head, but it's an amendment, and I think it would be just the base fee. Site plan amendment, it wouldn't be any per unit or per GFA fee. It would just simply be the base fee to change the tweak, basically one number to site plan condition.
But they'd also have to bring the site plan up to modern code, like the code for 3 years from now.
Yeah, there would be some conditions that we would likely want to amend, if language evolves within that 3-year term.
So you can tell me we're not allowed to do this. Could we recommend, if I were willing to make an amendment to the motion, that this, in the event that the GSA tenant, what was the phrase you used again? That they can eminent domain?
Eminent domain.
That they can seek eminent domain, to continue their lease. That in the event that specific scenario happens with a specific client, could we as planning commission recommend to the county board that the applicant not have to go through all the things you just outlined?
You can absolutely make a motion to that effect. I think probably a simpler motion would just be to amend the condition to give them 5 years.
You would recommend we just do the 5 years if that's the sense.
If that's what the commission would like to do.
But you're saying only do it in the case of this eminent domain.
Right. I'm not persuaded. I don't want to set a standard for other developers that 5 years is fair game. I don't think it is. I think in this particular scenario, given the God knows what is going on with the federal government right now, it's not unreasonable to say this is a truly atypical situation, and they could be held with their kind of, hostage, so to speak, by their tenant. I would be willing to, if others on this commission feel similarly, I would be willing to come up with language that would address that. Okay, at least one person agrees with me. Anyone else feel like that's reasonable? I'm not going to go down going an amendment if it's just me and Lynn tell me. No offense.
I mean, I'm not comfortable with a recommendation that is predicated upon the actions of a third party. I think like Mr. Pfeiffer was saying, you think you either motion to amend it for the 5 years, or we stick with the 3. I don't know. They don't know. I mean, that's the whole issue. They're seeking flexibility, and it means ultimately probably a question for the county attorney if the county board were actually to consider it. My sense is, again, because it's predicated on the actions of a third party, it's not something that I would necessarily advise. Either provide the flexibility or don't, is probably the way that I would see it.
To address your concerns, maybe what we could do is a whereas ahead of time, saying that describing the situation and why we're doing the 5-year extension, even if it's a blanket 5-year, because I think you have a legitimate concern that we don't want to establish this. We just give it out by anybody. This does have a specific thing. If we give a whereas clause that just says we're doing it because, and then ask for the 5-year without any restriction, that gives the guidance in the future to where the planning commission stands on something like this.
I think we could also approve the staff recommendation, but then when Commissioner Berkey speaks to this item at the county board hearing, he can express this conversation that we had, and the CAO will be present and could maybe weigh in on the appropriate way that this could be handled in the future. Or, if this happens in 3 years and they get asked for the exception or the extension, then maybe we don't hold them to the new standards if in these extenuating circumstances.
I mean, I think I can certainly raise the fact that it was raised, but if it's something that the commission wants to act on, I think it would be best done through a motion to amend the main recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, if we felt strongly enough, I'm willing to put together an amendment to the motion, and if it fails, it fails. But the sense I'm hearing from this commission is that folks would prefer a simpler, but some folks at least might prefer a simpler, just make it a 5-year validity period versus 3 years here. And I'm working on whereas language right now. Is that a fair assessment of the commission?
Commissioner Weir.
For what it's worth, I don't think that I think I agree with the staff recommendation. If my understanding of this, my understanding is that the staff is recommending to stick with the normal 3-year plan. The furthest I think we should go is a finding, is a sense of the commission that these are extraordinary circumstances, and it may be, it may prove to be the case that that it needs to be amended down the road. But I simply don't see recommending a departure from the 3-year term, especially when we can already if the circumstances, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, Mr. Pfeiffer, but if the circumstances that the applicant are worried about were to come to pass, the applicant can simply come to the county board and request an extension. Correct?
Correct. Yes.
I mean, I know that the county board can also say no, right? But I'm not aware of any circumstances where such a request, where such an amendment request has been declined. You're not.
No.
You're shaking your head, so which means that Mr. Pfeiffer.
Yeah, no, I'm also not aware of any instance in which a request to extend the validity of a site plan was denied or deferred or anything like that. And in fact, this past June, just a month ago, the board approved, I think, 12 extensions due to the cyclical nature of those. So,
Commissioner Weir, if I could just for a second, not to interject, but
no, I'm glad that you are, because I'm curious about this.
Yeah, it's far less about the certainty or uncertainty about the board extending the approval of a project that it's already approved. Some assumptions built in there, obviously, right? The point we're trying to make is that we have a known issue in front of us now. We have a CMRI policy that says we should be trying to convert these buildings through various mechanisms, one of which being the 4.1 plan. We can see very evidently right now a number of projects at the federal level being paused, new construction plans being paused. And we also know right now we have a GSA tenant that, should it not move out, I believe the St. E's project has actually been paused where this was going to go. And so there is a timing issue already. Knowing those factors now, we felt it is not precedential for those exact reasons. This building is unique among its peers, given its tenants. And with those known factors now, we felt it appropriate for, again, the commission to recommend a 5-year term and the board to approve that. We're trying to mitigate something down the road. Should it never come to pass, you have something that is not precedential and something that we never had to utilize. We would certainly appreciate the opportunity for that additional time, though, because we have to look forward just as well as the rest of everybody. And it's very difficult to see, 3, let alone 5 years down the road, what exactly these tenants are likely to do. Things are changing daily, hourly, almost by the minute.
Okay.
Thank you. That is helpful.
Okay, are we ready to go to motions? Would your motion come after we do the main motions?
Well, it might make sense for me to sort of read what I worked out here and see if folks feel it's worthwhile or if I should pivot in a different direction. Mining what I heard from Commissioner Lantelmi and from Commissioner Berkey, I came up with something along the lines of, whereas existing building tenants are federal clients with the power of eminent domain, it is the sense of this commission that a 5-year validity period for the site plan in question, would be appropriate or would be reasonable. I mean, that That's just sense of the commission kind of finding, but it would give, okay, I'm getting yeses on this side of the room. Anything on this side of the room? It would give you something to speak to when you do speak to the county board in a week. Why we felt the need to memorialize something.
Yeah, I think if folks want to support that motion, then that probably pretty adequately articulates, where they are.
Okay.
I'm personally probably not going to support it. But yeah, very, very doable.
Okay.
I'd be inclined to support that motion because we're trying to advise the board, right? This communicates information to the board without making a recommendation that that a number of us seem to be uncomfortable making at this point, right? A recommendation to go to 5 years. But it does keep the ball in the air, so to speak, for the board to be aware of our thinking, and for the board to give it some thought, especially as to the precedential concerns. I think that, Commissioner Steinberger, thank you for thinking that through. I think that it finds a middle way for me, and I'd be prepared to support it.
Okay, so why don't we do our main motions and then we'll go to the final language on yours.
Based on some slight feedback, I'm wordsmithing it exactly, but y'all do the main motion and I'll have it done.
Okay, so Commissioner Bagley, would you like to introduce your motions?
I move the Planning Commission recommend the County Board adopt the attached ordinance for SPLA 24-00036 Site Plan Number 187 to approve the subject site plan amendment to permit construction of up to 328 dwelling units with modifications of zoning standards for additional density exclusions, residential parking ratio, maximum compact parking percentage, minimum drive aisle widths, coverage and placement standards, and all other modifications necessary to achieve the proposed development located at 4601 Fairfax Drive, RPC number 14-013-022.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Berkey, and thank you for your motion. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion? No. Okay, let's go to a vote. Commissioner Lantelmi?
Aye.
Commissioner Weir?
Aye.
Commissioner Steinberger?
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley?
Aye.
Commissioner Berkey?
Aye.
Commissioner Robertson?
Aye.
And I also say aye. That passes unanimously. We have a finding as well for the vacation. Can you pull up the finding for us, please?
Sure. It is in my presentation. Let me just get that really quick. Sorry.
Do we do Sarah's motion before the vacation, or can we do it after?
Could do it after. I think it's independent of all of these.
Okay.
Should be up right now.
Okay.
I move the Planning Commission find that the ordinance to vacate a portion of an easement for public street and utility purposes on property owned by PDCREF2 Ballston LLC, known as 4601 Fairfax Drive, RPC number 14-013-022, with conditions as substantially in accord with the comprehensive plan of Arlington County, Virginia.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Bagley. And Commissioner Lantelmi seconds. Would you like to speak to your motion? Discussion? Okay, let's vote. Commissioner Lantelmi?
Aye.
Commissioner Weir?
Aye.
Commissioner Steinberger?
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley?
Aye.
Commissioner Berkey?
Aye.
Commissioner Robertson?
Aye.
And I also say aye. That passes unanimously. Do we have any final motions on this item?
Yes, I have a motion. Whereas the existing building tenants are federal government clients with the power of eminent domain to extend current leases, it is the sense of this commission that a 5-year validity period for the site plan in question would be reasonable.
Okay, second.
I'll second it.
Okay, Commissioner Lantomi seconds. Any discussion, or would you like to speak to your motion?
Felt like we just did that.
Okay, any discussion? Commissioner Weir? You just want to vote? Okay, let's vote. Commissioner Lantomi?
Aye.
Commissioner Weir?
Aye.
Commissioner Steinberger?
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley?
Aye.
Commissioner Berkey?
Nay.
Commissioner Robertson?
Aye.
And I will also say aye. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 to 1 and no abstentions. Okay, so that passes as well. Do we have any final motions? Madam Clerk, do we have anything? Or, well, thank you to staff. Thank you to the applicant. Thank you to our public speakers. We appreciate you bringing us this project and your hard work, making sure it's as wonderful as it is now. So thank you all. Madam Clerk, do we have any additional items for tonight before we go into recess?
We do not.
We do not. Okay, so we will thank you to everyone. Tonight's hearing summary will be presented to the county board at their upcoming meeting by Commissioner Berkey. This meeting is in recess, and we will have our final hearing of the month tomorrow night, same time, same place. Bye. Did